Welcome to the Drive Able podcast. I'm Brad Williams, and over with me in New South Wales is Ali Akbarium. G'day, Ali. How are you today?
Great. How you going, Brad?
Good. This is a bit of a different podcast episode today. You recently went over to Germany to the Rehacare Expo, and today's episode is about showing us what you saw. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I just want to do a bit of a reflection. We did a video walkthrough of the whole expo, so let's get into it.
I'm excited to see what you saw. Let's get this show on the road.
Let's get it started.
Welcome to the Drive Able podcast, where each episode you get to listen to two of Australia's leading professionals in the area of driving and community mobility for people with disabilities. In each episode, they interview drivers, carers, and industry experts and share the insider's guide to driving with a disability. Here are your hosts, Brad and Ali.
G'day again, everybody. I'm really excited about today's interview of Ali and his time at Rehacare 2022. Hopefully you can see this screen nice and clear. If you're listening to this on our podcast channels, we think the best place for you to go and see this episode is on YouTube. So make sure you head over to YouTube, search out Drive Able Podcast, and then Rehacare. That's Rehacare, Rehacare, and put the search in and watch this one on the Drive Able YouTube channel. Before we get started, we just want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors who make this show possible, Mobility Engineering and Williams OT. This show takes a lot of time and money to put together, and we're forever grateful for their passion to our industry. All right, let's get into this. Ali, you went over to Rehacare in Germany in October 2022, and this is our highlight of what you learnt over there. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So before we get started, what we'll do is I'll get you to hit the play button, and we're going to pretty much talk over the video as I'm sort of introducing. The video recording quality was pretty poor. The audio, should I say? The video is not too bad. It was a really, really busy expo, lots of background noise, and I had little ear pods, and I tried my best, but we are going to put the video in its entirety online for you to attempt to go and have a look. You can hear it. It's just not super clear, and we didn't want to kind of make that the quality of one of our podcasts. But as this expo is starting and you can see the video, one thing which really stands out when we go there is the scale. The scale of this thing is absolutely massive. It's one of the biggest in the world. It's the biggest in Europe. Sort of like what people would be familiar here with ATSA.
Well, how big is ATSA compared to this, Ali? How big is ATSA compared to this?
So there is 4 halls. So I'm standing in one here, for example, in an equipment hall. There was 4 or 5 of those halls this time, or 5 actually. And ATSA is basically half of one of the halls. So it's something like almost 10 times the size of ATSA. It's just beyond all conception. And if you are, to be honest, like I've said to many people before, my first visit to Rehacare in 2016 is actually what really inspired me to push mobility engineering to sort of where it is. It was that visit. So if you are from the industry, from Australia, it's well worth paying a few grand to get over there. It'll change your life, I guarantee it, especially if you're an OT or a modifier or anyone. The way things are done, the way people approach things, it's completely just different. And the scale, the competitiveness, the aggressiveness, the price is pretty cheap compared to here as well. So yeah, all of that is really good. And you'll see here in this video, I'm walking through some equipment halls, and
just to explain to people, the video is broken up into 2 parts. We're going for a general tour, is that right?
It's sort of a general tour around the place. The video does pan out a little bit because we're trying to show you a lot of what you can see. Very similar sort of stuff to ATSA, lots of interactive stuff, everything on display. It's just that here it's just supercharged, and there's just something for everything. Like there's a stand just in the background there, you can see just on head protection, and that's it. And like 20 different forms of head protection and all different angles of it, and the scale and the variety of what you can get, because there's so many people there. There's about 800 million people living in Europe. So, what they have accessible to them compared to what we have is really amazing. And what really was cool or what you really saw in 2022 with all of this, particularly home-based products, was things like robotics and actuators and sort of that smart stuff integrating with your phone and your devices is taking things to that next level. And things like beds and loaders and cots and all this stuff are just moving in all these amazing different kind of directions and angles, and really, really helping people, I guess, assist with their lives and move forward, in a pretty easy way. So,
hey Ali, just a reminder to everybody, we're going to put links to this video in the show notes. So if you want to go and watch this and press the pause button and go, oh, what was that? And have a look at the company name in the background, because we're moving fairly fast through this area. If you want to go and see something in a little bit more detail, make sure you go and press the link for the YouTube video and press that pause button, and you can get a bit more information. But, what we've highlighted, Ali, is that it shows like this in Europe, and there's other shows in America and places like that. But the NDIS has been so good about bringing more and more of these products to Australia, yeah?
Yeah, and actually that was the next point I was going to talk about with that NDIS. And so NDIS has been in Australia for like under 10 years, or just on 10 years around. But when I go to Europe, and they've got similar kind of funding schemes that have been around since, the 70s and 80s. So very, very mature system compared to us. And what I found was the culture around kind of community inclusion, the culture around people that are actually disabled, is quite different. It's a lot more inclusive over in Europe. People different approached funding differently. I found in Australia, people sometimes tend to kind of go, oh, what can I get? Let me get the maximum for what I can get, and try and pack in as much as they can into their funding packages. And we've spoken about that, and we've even advised about that on these, on this show.
Oh, it's a big passion of mine, isn't it? It's a big passion of mine. We've got to do the functional best thing for people rather than what's the best product out there, because just because you pay a lot of money for something doesn't mean that it's going to suit you as a person. Everyone's disability is different.
Yeah, and what you'll find is, see, when you see a scheme that's matured 30, 40 years down the track, there's no more money left for that stuff. So you look at we're basically seeing NDIS 3 decades into the future when we go to Europe, and half the stuff that gets funded here doesn't get funded anymore over there, because they've realized that, well, not just they as a government, but as a community. Because what was interesting was the disabled people themselves, and also the retailers themselves, were saying, we don't sell you stuff just because, we want to make money. Because it was really interesting. One of the people turned around and said, oh, but if I sell this person something, then that's a lot of money out of our government's tax dollars. That's not really good for our country, is it? And it was really interesting, because I've never heard anyone in Australia say anything like that. They sort of say, yeah, give me all the money from the government,
Yeah.
And so the mentality shifts when the money starts to run out, and sort of it gets a little bit more tight. So they really, really do test that kind of community inclusivity. But what it's forced, which is really awesome, is
great ramps there.
Really cool ramps there. What it's forced is actually much more of a blending of the disability and the non-disability community, because it's forcing them to work together to optimize their systems, and their solutions. And then that forces a lot more refined products, which you see in Europe. Because there's not as much funding available, they have to really refine those products to make it exactly what you need for your need, because you really have to justify, that money, because, as I said, there's a lot more people wanting some of that pie, and the money runs out over time, so it was a really, really good experience, an eye-opening part of that experience to see that. But what was a really positive part, as I said, to that, was that it actually promoted that inclusivity and that working together a lot more, and so you felt like the disability community and the non-disability community was much more integrated together in Europe as compared to, let's say, in Australia, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful little tour. You've done 2 halls there, and now we're actually getting into the vehicle halls. Now, in Australia, when you go to ATSA, or in South Australia, we've got the Disability and Lifestyle Expo coming up, actually. It's off in one corner of the main hall. It's against one wall.
Yeah.
How big is it here?
Here it's almost the size of a whole ATSA, and this year it was a bit smaller with all the COVID and all the, you know, there's actually been an issue in Europe because they can't get as many cars, all the manufacturing delays, so things were a bit smaller, but still it was basically the size of a whole ATSA, and I'm going to start walking through. I've done a few of the more common stands. When I say common stands, the stands that are the brands that we see more commonly in Australia and we have covered, you know, in our podcasts. So we've got a bit of a walkthrough of the automotive area first, where we've got some of the lifters, B&S there in the background. Guys are all friendly and everything like that. They all know us in Australia as the automotive guys. And then what we'll do is we go through sort of more of an individual tour of the stands, and you can see some of the products.
Yeah, just yell out if you want me to pause it at any stage, Ali, and we can talk in depth of something if we need to, all right?
Will do. What was really interesting in the automotive area was the innovation actually wasn't that much compared to, let's say, the non-automotive area. Lowered floors are still the same. Hand controls are pretty much still the same, maybe a few different sort of hand knobs and so on. But the automotive industry seems to be moving towards that autonomous vehicle kind of way. So the innovations in the automotive industry were kind of like communication boxes with your car and ways to communicate with your car, because all the cars are so much smarter now, you know. So yeah, really interesting, really interesting, I guess, evolution in the automotive area, and a bit of a surprise. I was expecting something a bit more. That's a Guido Simplex, which is a common brand also in Australia. That's relatively common. PME, I think, works with Guido Simplex the first a little bit there. Even the automotive, that's Dahl over there. They've got a sort of a Dahl docks set up there. And we have the Feigl guys who do the hand controls from Germany. And we're going to do a walkthrough of their stand, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And they're doing a lot of innovation around that sort of electronic space. And then we also have, basically all different kind of companies, AMF, Brawn Ability. It's just so many. Fardiel.
Look at all those products.
A little bit jumpy, but that's okay. Then
I apologize about the scratchiness of the video if you're watching this, but what I can see in the background is just the variety of modifications and aids on display compared to, you know, like we've said, the one wall or the one little area at ATSA. There just seems to be so much variety around a common theme.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, that's really all it is. You know, you've got so many. So, for example, here you see in this background, Smart Steer. So we've spoken about one, or one or two companies that do it, Fardiel or Paravan, that do these steering things. But there's about 3 or 4 other companies in Europe that are doing it, and they're doing different styles of high-end hand controls as well. You know, it's not just what we've seen here. So as we've said before, that variety just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and then it just makes it more accessible for more people basically to access on the roads. You know,
you were just at the Beaver stand there. I don't think anybody's importing Beaver products into Australia yet. So and they look like they're competitive to the Fardiel brand and the Space Drive Paravan type of products there. So look, that might be something to look out for in the future in Australia.
Yeah, I think we might see them try and make an attempt here. But yeah, look, they're actually really they're, from all of them, they looked actually pretty good quality.
Yep.
And they do actually manufacture some of the parts for like Paravan and all of them anyway. So
I'll just press pause there. I just wanted to say that with all of the recordings and things like that, the quality is a little bit jumpy with us talking over the top of it. We do apologize for that jumpy take over the back there. You can still see everything going on in the background. There's that lady who just wheeled herself into the driver's position just back at the last screen. Now, this bit here you go a little bit more in depth in some of the main products that are in Australia. Is that right? Is that what you do in this next little bit?
Yeah. So given that we've spoken about a couple of these brands and some of the customers, I thought I'd cover those stands in more detail. So the first one is Feigl, and basically just going around and looking at what they've got to offer on their stand. They had a pretty they actually won the best stand in that hall. So they spent a lot of time and effort to kind of make it this walkthrough sort of thing. So they had a little bit of a setup there where you could trial different hand controls and spinner knobs and things like that. So that was the first little setup there with a E Classic, I think it was.
Yep.
And their
Commander there.
Yeah, their Commander steering knob.
Yep.
Basically just little demo stands where you could pull up and try it out and try different things out.
And they're pressure tested there. You said that you were making lights work and you're flashing lights.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's all hooked up and it all works, so you can actually get that kind of real life experience and see how it feels.
Yes, that's awesome. Some spinner knobs there from Feigl as well, and there are other
Classic with the smart
Classic with a Commander actually in the spinner in the hand control there. So these products here are available in Australia. Yes. That one there's a bit more of a mechanical version. These are all available in Australia, these products. Is there some things that were of a highlight to you?
The Feigl products in general, they well, look, to be honest, I have a bit of a I guess I lean towards, depending on the products which have mechanical stuff in them. I find that the Germans just seem to really do really well with that mechanical stuff. It just is really, really strong, really, really high quality. And when you operate it, it just feels so smooth and so, just so good. And even, for example, here, Feigl have created a swivel base, like a 6-way base, but theirs is an 8-way base. And when you look at the operation of their product, this one here, compared to any other product we've seen, it's just I don't know, it's just beautiful. The way it moves, it's seamless, it's strong. So the German stuff, when it comes to their kind of that mechanical stuff, it just works so smooth. I guess if you think about like a Mercedes or a BMW, it honestly feels like the Mercedes of hand controls or the BMW of hand controls. It just feels so smooth and so strong, and you can actually see this particular swivel seat, they've won a Red Dot design award. So the Germans are really, really, I guess, really good at their design and really good at that functionality and the stuff that kind of just works and is really strong. It's actually really interesting seeing the different focuses on the different companies, because you can play it through now, and then we'll probably end up at the Fardiel stand, which is the Italian guys.
Just before we go on and press play, so in Australia we've got 6-way bases.
Yeah.
So this one here's got 8 functions. So normally it's forwards and backwards, and you can see on this video here that it's got a really long track and it comes all the way back to the second row of a van.
So this one actually is not the track. So this is also really cool about this particular product. It doesn't actually have a track. That's a false flaw that they've put there. It's trackless. It's all built into the small box. That's the only footprint it has, is the small box underneath it.
Unbelievable. So forwards and backwards, rotation backwards and forwards are 2 more moves. Up and down are the traditional 6. Can you recall what the other 2?
It tilts backwards and forwards.
Tilts backwards and forwards. Oh, fantastic. To be able to keep somebody more secure in their seat.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So it's got that kind of like that tilt in space type function. And that's actually being tested specifically with a Rehacare ErgoMed setup. So it's it's really, really like their products are really nice when it comes to the mechanical side of it.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, and as I said, you start to see sort of those strengths between the different cultures as well. So here we're going into the Fardiel stand, and that's a huge stand. They've done really well. And what you'll see here, the Italians, they're really kind of about more like beauty, like they really like you to feel like included, if that makes sense. There's so many different designs for everything, and everything comes in like you look at these spinner knobs, there's about 5 different shapes, and then on top of those shapes there's like 10 different colors, you know, so it's just you know, the Italians are a little bit more about that kind of romantic style, you know, like the quality of the products are really good, but they want you to kind of feel sexy as well, you know, like you can get pink hand controls, and you know, they've got, this is all of their smart stuff there, the big boxes and all of their electronic controls and so on, and all of that stuff's there. But you'll see when we go a little bit further down to the other side of the stand, is when they really kind of come alive. They just got so many different colors, so many different skins. All of it's kind of interchangeable as well. So this I thought was pretty cool. They had all the different hand controls, but different styles of sort of covers, different colors, different little knobs, you know, different functions, all within that same kind of base frame infrastructure.
So that taps into what we were saying earlier about getting, it's not just color, like the gray one there and the pink one on the other side. You can actually get the right fit for your hand, for your shoulder, for making sure that driving is really comfortable for you. So wonderful stuff.
What I really love about the attitude in Europe, though, is that's not enough. When you say, oh, this is the functionality, they go, yeah, but how does it make you feel? How does it look? And that's a major question they're asking there, you know, and no one even asked that here. And that's really cool that they go, you know, if it looks crap, don't put it in your car. You know, if you don't like the way it looks, if it's not pink and you want pink, don't put it in your car, because that's what you want. And it's so awesome that they have that mentality. Like, I mean, look at all the different gloves, you know. So yeah, it's really, and the Italians do that really well. You know, they really, you know, they're just famous for that kind of that charm and that style, and it comes out in their products as well.
And again, if you want to go and see this and you want to press pause and make sure that you know, able to see, and hopefully the quality is a little bit better on the actual linked video, make sure you head over to YouTube, look for the Drive Able podcast on YouTube. Look out for this episode called Rehacare 2022, and in the show notes we'll put a link through to this video where you can watch Ali. Sometimes the quality of the audio is not so good, but we'll get a smooth recording for you to go and watch, and you can actually listen to what he's saying live. If you turn up the volume really loud, the quality's not great, but make sure you go and have a look at that if you want to go and learn a little bit more about these products. Go and press pause on those colors. Go and have a look at those hand controls and look at the different ergonomic designs for those hands and so forth. Really interesting stuff. And geez, we've just got our fingers crossed that all of this makes it out to Australia. I'll press play.
Yeah. And now this next part is actually also really good and to talk about, particularly coming for the future. So we're going through the tripod, and then I think there'll be another stand there as well that we're going through Volkswagen, talking about wheelchair accessible vehicles. And that's an EWAV, which is an electric car, and that is interesting. So first of all, in Australia,
I'm going to press pause on this because this is very interesting for the market coming up. Let's press pause on this and let's really talk about this.
Yeah, so very, very interesting. Before I went to Europe, I guess when we were talking about electric cars in Australia with Australians, and you look at things like what the politicians are talking about and the way they're talking about it, it's kind of like, yeah, electric cars will be here in the future and we'll get to them someday. And, you know, sort of reminds me of when the COVID vaccine first came out, you know, we'll get around to it, you know, whenever we need to and so on. And it was a very laissez-faire attitude. And I actually was very proud of that attitude until I went to Europe. And then what I realized was we're actually very, very far behind with that attitude, because there's nothing but electric vehicles in Europe, and there's nothing but that coming into the future. And if we don't shift our attitudes, we are so behind, and we're going to be so left in the dark ages. And what's going to happen is the community is going to miss out, because what's happening here is the cars are shifting, and the way that we convert cars, we can't do that anymore. And that's basically what we're going to have a problem with.
Well, I just want to add on to that. In Australia, if you say electric vehicle van, then the first instinct is that it can't be done because all of the batteries in the floor. But what we're looking at right here in this paused picture is a lowered floor van that's an electric vehicle. So this is technology that we want to see here in Australia. I don't know if you can remember what brand car this is, or whether it's specifically built. Sorry?
Yeah. And actually, on that note, with the batteries being under the car, that was actually interesting. It's getting pretty technical. So the current situation with batteries under the car is sometimes they're built into the structure of the car, sometimes they're bolted. If they're bolted, they can relocate the batteries and put them into other parts of the car. If they're built into the structure, you can't do anything. And that's actually happening more and more. And if you press play, it'll get to the Volkswagen one where they had one there on display. It was kind of like a newer version of the Volkswagen Transporter, and it was kind of there for display for the modifiers to look at what they can do. And you know what? I think what we're going to see in the future when it comes to WAVs, which will be interesting what people think about. I'm interested to see what people think about it, is I think we're going to be moving more towards like, if you remember, there was a phase which back in the 90s, there was those Ford Falcons with the bubble on the back.
Oh yeah, there's still some retro taxis getting around. Hey, just
Yeah.
before we move on,
Yep.
WAV, for people that don't know this industry, WAV's a bit of jargon. WAV stands for Wheelchair Accessible Vehicle. Just to highlight. Go on,
Yeah.
Ali. Let's talk about those Ford bubbles.
What I think you're going to find is, for lack of a better term, Popemobiles, where you're going to find bubbles being put on the top of the roof so people can access through the back.
So we're going back to the 80s and 90s, you reckon?
I think that's going to be the way, yeah, because basically what you'll see is the new, so these converters like Tripod, they're able to convert the electric ones that they are not built into the floor structure. If they're just hanging off the floor under the bottom, like as battery packs, then they can relocate them, they can move them around. But when it's integrated into the floor structure, that you just can't cut it. You can't do anything with it. And so you just have to leave it as it is and then go on top of it. And another really interesting innovation, which I did see over there, which was actually at another expo, at a heavy vehicle expo, which we're going to see starting to come out, actually a little sort of side plug through mobility engineering as a bit of an innovation here, is a fully functional false floor that you glue straight onto the top of the floor. So you do not drill anything into the body of the vehicle. You basically have a functional false floor that sits on top of the let's say the floor in the van, and inside that false floor there's retractors, there's restraints, there's bolts for seats that you can mount your lifter. Everything is there, and that just glues in, and you'll see those starting to come out. But then there'll have to be that extra leg room, so you'll start to probably see those those Potemobile style roof cutouts.
Yeah, so I love the shape of that new combi, the new multivan there that we just saw. You come back and have a bit more of a chat about that in the near future. But here it comes again in red and black. It's a nifty looking car. It's a great looking futuristic car, but it offers us a whole lot of opportunity for clients in wheelchairs that we can see in the background.
Yeah, so this I was interested to do a bit of a video because this is multivan, is I think the T7 or T8. It's not out in Australia yet. Really, really flashy, and I guess I guess as a family, disabled family, as we've said in this podcast many times, you often have to kind of sacrifice with the quality of stuff you have. But if you can get your hands on one of these things, you're going to be in a pretty nice bit of kit to be traveling your family around. It's very, very nice, very, very futuristic. And here you've got the Feigl 8-way base installed into the into that front seat with the Feigl hand controls.
It's great to see it in position there, because that's what it looks like in real life, and you can see that it's got the standard car seat on top there. It's not a different car seat. It's the actual vehicle's car seat, and it's got all of those 8 functions, including the tilt there. So look, there's lots of opportunities in this vehicle if you can get your wheelchair into the back. I'll press play again.
Yeah, so like I said, this is sort of coming up towards the end of the show, or what we covered in this show, and like I said, it was just really awesome to see all of this different variety, all the different integration. What was really awesome here, and I'd like to kind of put a shout out to the Volkswagen Australia or any of the Australian manufacturers, partner up with the local companies and get to the expos. I mean, we had all of these guys there, and like Volkswagen had salespeople there, and they were selling Volkswagens, on the stands there. So they were doing really well, and it shows a really good, I guess, corporate social responsibility. They're looking after that community as well, and integrating directly with them. So, yeah, I think that's a great addition, and also allows partnership with, you know, suppliers and manufacturers like Mobility Engineering or you know, Guido Simplex, Fadiel, whoever. Just allows to show that possibility out there on the market, and it's really good. And this is that Guido Simplex stand where there was actually a pretty cool thing, which I think we do go through it. There's a thing where you can go up in your wheelchair and do like a simulation video game with hand controls, and that was pretty cool as well.
Oh yeah, I think that just gets a little quick highlight at the end here, but there it is in the background there. Mate, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for taking the time to record this while you're over there. It's getting to the end of the video now. You're winding it up there. Just a reminder, if you want to go and watch this, and hopefully without the little glitches in it, because it'll be a smooth recording without us talking over the top of it, go and press pause, go and have a closer look at things. If you're a modifier, there might be some things in here that really tickle your fancy. And there might also be some modifications in there. You go, oh, geez, I could do that. And you can talk to people like Mobility Engineering and see if they're available or whether we can get them into Australia. So I just want to do a massive shout out to you for taking the time to go over there, share your knowledge as you're walking around. And if people want to listen to your knowledge as you walk around live, yes, the sound quality is not great. Make sure you press the link in the show notes, and we'll have it there for you.
Yeah, and I mean, like it was good to go there, and I appreciate the kind words. I did have a bit of a holiday as well, so it was good.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the Oktoberfest the weekend after.
I saw some photos from there. It looked like you had a very, very good time. I wish I was there as well.
Yeah, and actually on that note, and in this sort of in relation to what we're talking about, even at the Oktoberfest, everywhere you go in Europe, that accessibility is just so much better than what it is here, and it's sort of like assumed. And what's really interesting is you know, a lot of Europe, similar to some of the old parts of, let's say, Adelaide or even Sydney, you know, really crappy when it comes to you know, accessibility. But what was awesome was like they don't necessarily upgrade these facilities, but the people that work are aware of what's needed to be done. So I went to a one of these. It was just a brewery that was like, you know, like a pub basically for dinner one night in Dusseldorf, and it was really nice beer and, you know, pork knuckle and all that typical German pub. There was steps all around the pub. It was an old thing with you know, steps everywhere, and it was a really old pub. And it was interesting because we turned up there and there was a guy, it wasn't someone that I knew, but there was a guy in front of me with some friends and a wheelchair. He was in his wheelchair. He just rocked up to the door. It was an interesting exchange because he rocked up to the door. They just picked him up and put him in. No one even batted an eye. And like the security had the assumption that if we need to, we just pick this wheelchair up and we move it in. Whereas I've noticed in Australia, if that needs to happen, oh, I don't know, am I supposed to help? Can I touch? What about this? Liabilities. And everyone just goes out of their way to not help. But over there, it was kind of like, bang, not even it was a non-event. It was, and so that goes back to what I was saying about that integration for more into the community. I think we'll see that more with NDIS, where you see, you know, like I'm hoping that in 20 years time or 15 years time, that's what it's like here. You know, it's just an assumed that, hey, it's part of our community. We're all together. That's what needs to be done to get you into this venue, and that's it, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little short break like we do in every episode. Make sure you stick around. We're going to have a little bit of a debrief, and we're going to come away with our top 3 takeaways after this short break. So hang around, Pete. All right, welcome back after the short little break. In this section, we bring you our expert analysis and top 3 takeaways from the interview, but this time it wasn't an interview. It was Ali's experience at the Rehacare Expo over in Germany, one of the biggest expos for disability in the world. So this is where we bring together our 30 years of joint experience in the industry with helping people with disabilities to drive and get out and about in the community in a safe and meaningful way. Ali, what's the number one takeaway that we want to highlight here from your trip to Germany?
The big takeaway I thought was that piece around the funding. We speak a lot about NDIS on our podcast. It almost seems to be a big theme.
And we love it. We love it. And what it's done for Australians with disabilities, look, it's opened up so many opportunities. So we love it. Just want to put that out there before we start.
Big time. And it's been something that's been kind of, a long time coming, because in Europe they've had stuff like that for 30, 40 plus years. But what was interesting was seeing something like the NDIS 30 years down the track, is that the funding gets very, very tight. They start counting the dollars and cents, and not necessarily because they're trying to stop you from accessing products, but they want to really, really know, is this the right product, and is my dollar going all the way to the end? So just expect that to happen. We're already seeing that through multiple revisions of NDIS. And even people in our industry, and I'm sure OTs as well, modifiers, they even already are speaking of the old heydays where anything would be passed, and now it's a bit, harder and so on. And you'll just have more and more of that, and you've got to be aware of that.
Yeah, and it wouldn't take me by surprise if it's a bit. I went over to England and I went to. They've got a thing over there called the Motability Scheme, which is it's like a NDIS specific thing for driving. They've got a scheme specific to help people get out on the road with modifications in cars and things like that. I believe, I'm not all over it, but I believe you've got to apply to have your product approved for funding. So the people that are designing the bits and pieces need to get their product approved to be on the list. And I think that, that's the way that it's been happening with DVA for years here in Australia. You've got to get your product onto the DVA approved list. So I think, this is my personal opinion, I believe that NDIS will go down that track in the future, and products, it won't be just any product. I think it'll be a variety of products will be on the list for easy approval, and then you'll need to apply for things that are not on that list. And that's the way I think it'll go. So it'll get tighter in regards to those fundings, and you'll really have to prove points of why you want something that's a little bit different. All right, so what was point number 2, Ali?
So point number 2, which I'll bring actually from our previous discussion, point 3, into it, because it's related to what we just spoke about, is get out there and learn more and go to the expos. Because like you said, it's going to be, I guess, more challenging for a prescriber to be prescribing, because they need to really get it right. And as things go on, as these are the common things we're seeing in our discussions here. And how do you learn? By going to these expos. Like, look at what's going on. We've talked about these ATSAs, we've talked about these Rehacares. I've shown you the videos. There is so much variety, and you learn something every time you go there. And it's part of your job. Sitting in an office, like in the middle of nowhere or wherever you're located, if you're not going out there and going and investing in these expos and going there and learning, like we said, a good OT, a good prescriber, a good modifier is one that knows those products and has got their mind across everything, and you really need to be out there learning, getting that inspiration, understanding what's going on, because you learn something every day. And that's just go out there and get to those expos.
Couldn't agree more. As we're recording this, I'm getting ready for the Adelaide Expo, which is the Disability and Lifestyle Expo, which happens at Wavell Showgrounds. It'll be in one hall, one miniature hall, really, compared to Rehacare. And it'll have some products on display, but it certainly won't have all of these products like we saw in your video. And look, this is why we had the CEO of ATSA, I've gone blank on his name on here.
David Sinclair.
That's the one. We had him on the show to talk about ATSA. We are passionate about it. We're passionate about learning about modifications and bits of equipment that are available to get the best out of life for people with disabilities. We encourage you to get along, and that's why we have shared this, the ATSA Expo. I'll probably do a walk around the DAL Expo in Adelaide. So if you can't make it, you're getting a little bit of a snapshot. So I hope you enjoy our passion, because you're going to get more of it. So what's our final takeaway, Ali?
The final takeaway is something which is I really wanted to encourage that discussion really happening more and more within the community and also the disability community, is that piece around electric vehicles coming hard and fast. We've spoken about it in the past, not too much. I have spoken a lot with my colleagues within the modifying industry and engineers. The way that the culture is approaching in Australia, or the expectation in Australia, is, I guess, false from what I saw. It seems to be this distant thing in the future. I guess, yeah, like what I saw in Europe is that the distance thing in the future is now. And there's no more petrol or diesel or anything like that left. So we kind of need to evolve, and we need to be thinking and talking about it and putting that pressure on the community that, hey, no, this is something that's happening. We don't need to be just like going, oh, well, it's for the hippies. No, it's not. It's for everybody.
So you highlighted the vehicle there by Tripod, which is a kit form for a Citroen. Unfortunately, we don't have that Citroen being imported into Australia. So if anyone's got questions about how do we get that in Australia, the unfortunate bit is the actual Citroen itself is not being imported into Australia. So that's one massive hurdle. If we were to go and engineer something like this in Australia, I don't know if you know more about costs, but I've heard that it's in excess of $100,000 just to go through the engineering part of cutting a sample floor, putting in the kit, getting it torsion tested, going through all of the bits and pieces on a trial car to make sure it's all right, and then tweaking that and working on it to make sure it's all right. And then you can then prescribe a car with all of these things. So it's a massive amount of investment. And there are kits available from Tripod and things like that. So we need the cars here and prove that these kits are safe in Australia. So, Ali, I know you're huge on that type of thing to try and get these kits into Australia. So people have got these options available for them for electronic vehicles as an option for the future.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's important to just talk about it, because the stories that came out from Europe is that consumer demand is what it's all about. You know, if the customer wants it, the companies will bring it. So yeah. And if you're not talking about it, they won't be thinking about it. So
yeah. All right. So we really hope that you enjoyed this episode. We're gonna wind it up, but before we do, as we do in every episode, we're going to do a shout out to our sponsors. I'm going to do a massive shout out to Mobility Engineering. Ali, thank you so much for going over there and sharing what you learned around the Rehacare Expo, and our other sponsors, Williams OT, for helping you bring this to you today. Just a reminder, Mobility Engineering is a team of passionate and dedicated people focused on bringing Australia's largest range of suitable transport solutions for all walks of life, and you certainly saw that today. And Williams OT, driver assessments and rehab, is all the pieces of the puzzle to assist people with disabilities reach their driving and community mobility goals. Look, if you wanted to be a sponsor of this show to help us bring you more content, shout out to us, give us a line. We highlight Mobility Engineering and Williams OT. You can get on the podcast as well if you'd like to be a sponsor. If you want to press the like button, hit the share button, make sure you get this out to people that might find this interesting. It can be somebody with a disability, it can be a modifier, it can be your OT, or share it with another OT that you might know. Let's get this podcast spread around so other people can learn from what we're sharing as well. So hopefully people are enjoying our passion in the area. All right. As we say in every episode, the advice provided in this podcast is general in nature. So if you've got any queries about what will work for you, make sure you get in contact with your local OT or mobility dealer and set yourself up with a trial, because trials really do put you in that driver's seat. That's it, mate. Thank you so much for sharing all of that wonderful content, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks very much, and I hope to travel somewhere again.
No worries. Hopefully I'm mixed it this time. See you, mate. Thanks very much. Thanks for listening to the Drive Able podcast with Brad Williams and Ali Akbarian. If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show notes or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. Just search @DriveAblePodcast for more information.